Okay, we're good to go? All right. Okay, so how many people here are familiar with DesktopServer? Awesome. And how many people are not familiar with DesktopServer? I guess for the better question. Okay, great. So real fast, DesktopServer is just a way to do local host development. It's designed to mimic most hosting providers. So what we did was we took a look at the way that most hosting providers configure their servers, and we chose a WordPress compatible stack so that you as a developer can work offline, where you won't need an internet connection. Then we threw in a couple of really cool features that allow you to accelerate your development cycle. So if you're working on your local host development in DesktopServer and you want to try out a new plugin or a new theme that might be kind of questionable, you don't know if it's going to do something to your data, you can quickly copy a site in DesktopServer and then apply your changes to that copy relatively quickly and then decide whether or not you want to make that your site that you want to deploy. There's a couple of other features that are in there specifically for designers. So if you're a Coda user or even a Dreamweaver user, and a couple of you guys might laugh at that, Dreamweaver is still around. It is still used as a design tool for doing CSS. DesktopServer has a couple of features within it that allow you to do what you see, what you get theme design in real time in Dreamweaver. So if you want to customize your WordPress website, you want to make the theme look a specific way, or you're a CSS designer, you want to apply stuff, you can actually do that when you're using Dreamweaver on a WordPress theme. And I can show a quick example of that.
Can you turn your gain up?
Yeah, sure. How's that?
Good.
1, 2, okay. So I'll walk through real fast how to create a WordPress website. And I'm just going to show a couple of the designer features. Chris, do you use Coda or
Sublime?
Do you use Sublime? Woo!
I bought Coda yesterday.
How do you like it?
Does Sublime have an integrated web browser?
No.
It does not, right? Okay, that's what I thought.
It may have plugins that may allow it to do it, but by default it does not.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so what I'm showing you here, there's a couple of features in here. If you're a DesktopServer user, you may have overlooked them if you're not using Dreamweaver or Coda. But these two checkboxes here are rather important for designers. So I'll show you how these features work. Then I'll talk a little bit about 4.0, which a lot of people have been asking about. So if I create a website, I can show you how quickly it is to create a WordPress website on your local machine. So I'll call this one advanced. And click create.
Stephen, do you need to have the www in front?
You don't. However, that's a good question. As advanced users, why do we include www? Can anybody think of a good reason?
Isn't it 2 different websites?
It is technically 2 different websites, but www allows you to leverage proxy services like Cloudflare. You cannot use Cloudflare unless you use a subdomain like www. So that's a good reason for some people who want to leverage Cloudflare.
I use Cloudflare without www.
You don't? Oh, you do? Is it Cloudflare?
I do.
Okay, well then perhaps I'm wrong. There might be a new feature that's there. There are some advantages I've heard of using www, but Matt, who basically promotes and pushes and helped develop WordPress in its inception, wrote an article about why we shouldn't use www. And there's a lot of articles out there that promote it. It used to be that if you wanted to use a proxy service like Cloudflare, that the popular way to do it was to leverage a subdomain. And that's why www is still used to some degree. But to answer your question, no, you don't have to use www. They are technically 2 different sites. Anybody can think of a reason why you don't want to use www? In WordPress, basically, it's if you're doing multi-site, you want to keep away from using a subdomain. So if you have your basic domain, such as example.com, and then you're going to be doing multi-site installation using subdomains, where you're going to have like a chicago.example.com or san diego.example.com, then you want to start out your WordPress installation without a www or subdomain. So that's a good reason for not using it. And that's another thing that Desktop Server allows you to do. You can simulate multi-site in Desktop Server relatively easy. So you don't have to fiddle around with your host file. You don't have to worry about setting up a DNS or any of the delays that are associated when you set up the DNS because you're all working locally. All right, so with that site created, I missed the hyperlink there, but Desktop Server by default sets up your WordPress websites in your documents folder and gives it its own subfolder so that you can have all of your project files located there. You can work directly. You don't have to FTP. This is just like working on a Word or Excel file that's local on your own machine. So you can work relatively fast, or a lot faster than having to deal with an FTP client. Question?
Can you import a WordPress website? Have you done that?
Sure, you certainly can. So one of the last items that you'll see on Desktop Server is an import and export. Desktop Server now supports a handful of backup file formats. We're working on a cPanel format because a lot of people use cPanel. But right now it does work with Backup Buddy, Backup WP, Back WP Up. I know this kind of sounds familiar, but they are two different ones. Duplicator is a free one that's really popular. So if you create a duplicator backup of your live website, you can open it up natively in Desktop Server. You don't have to go through the 15-step process that, say, Backup Buddy has in order to transition your site. Desktop Server will actually open it up just by asking for the file name. So if I click Export, Import, I click Next, then I say Import, followed by clicking Next. You can see it's just going to ask for the actual import file. So I can show a demo of that sometime. You can hit me up offline. So it's a great way to bring your site from live down to live. But one of the big features that I wanted to talk about was for designers, specifically for designers who are customizing their websites. So if you're a Dreamweaver user, it automatically creates a Dreamweaver project file for you. So if I double click that, it's going to launch Dreamweaver. And you can jump into what we call a WYSIWYG mode. So for instance, with that project file, I can import it. Let's see here. Websites. Advanced.dev is our example here. And so WYSIWYG is a great way to accelerate your development. How many people here are familiar with DevPress? DevPress was managed by Tom Do. He's a really big theme developer in WordPress, and he used to work with, what was the framework that he used? Hybrid, yeah. So he uses Dreamweaver a lot, and so that's one of the features that he uses. So if we scroll down to 2014, and I actually open up the index page, let's see here. And I click on Live, we haven't finished installing desktop WordPress, which is classic. Okay, so once I've created my WordPress website, I can actually go to it. So one of the things you'll notice here is that we already suppress the ability to make this WordPress website live. So notice that if you normally install WordPress, there's a checkbox that's here. And we turn that off because we don't want to taint SEO. So when you're working locally, even though you may not be accessible to the internet, WordPress and a handful of plugins too can actually go out and ping search engines and tell people that this particular URL permalink exists. They may not be able to get it to index that information, but that can result in contamination. So when you import a website into Desktop Server, it automatically flips that bit off. So your website is no longer pinging to the outside and telling search engines what's going on with your business. A question?
I'm pretty new to customizing WordPress themes. Is that something that's really easily to turn back on?
Yeah, to a degree. Yeah, that would definitely. The privacy setting?
No, the search, having your
Yeah, you can go ahead and actually turn it back on if you go into the WordPress administration panel. Now, when you actually export desktop server websites off to the live web, it will actually flip it back on for you.
Oh.
You have the option to go ahead and turn it off. The default is on because most people that publish to the internet who aren't doing client previews are going to want their stuff indexed, right? So yeah, it takes that into consideration. Okay, so now that I've installed my WordPress website, and I jump back into Dreamweaver, and we'll go into split mode so we can actually see code on the left-hand side and the actual website on the right-hand side. So now we can actually see our theme. We can hover and we can take a look at the CSS that's going on here. If I click on the Hello World portion, it takes my cursor down to that actual piece of code that tells me what's going on there. Now it's taking me to the PHP code, not the HTML code, because you could do this in Firefox, right? I mean, what's the whole point? Just do a new source. But Firefox isn't going to tell you the PHP code that generated that element, whereas Dreamweaver is the only tool that I know of that can actually do that. What happens if you normally go to index.php in your web browser? So if you go to WP Content, Themes, 2014, index.php, any idea what you see? Nothing. We usually see a fatal error because your theme file is not going to work. But Desktop Server understands that you're using Dreamweaver. And if you're a web designer, this is really important because now you can go ahead and apply all your CSS styles and do all your changes in real time. I can actually go ahead and, hard code or insert code and actually see what's going on. So for instance, if I open up a fraction of the file, say for instance the header.php file, well the header file is incomplete. So Desktop Server is going to analyze that file, it'll see that it's incomplete, and I'll just render what you've got. So there's the header. And if I click here, again it's taking me to the actual PHP code that generates that code, that markup. So real acceleration for designers. So I actually went to hard code stuff. I can see it happening in real time. Yes?
This works with all the themes out there and frameworks?
No, no, it doesn't, because a lot of themes do proprietary things. This primarily works for basic themes. A lot of the themes that are in the current WordPress.org directory. Now, the same feature also exists within Coda. So if you're a Macintosh user and you use Coda, it'll also work there. NetBeans 8 is out, and we do have plans to go ahead and incorporate the same feature there. There's also a really hot CSS tool out there. Greg, what was the name of that tool?
I don't find, sorry.
It was a CSS tool that we wanted to incorporate the same WYSIWYG functionality.
CodeKit.
Yeah, so anybody here familiar with CodeKit or use CodeKit? Really hot tool right now. So that's something that we can look forward to in Desktop Server 4, is the ability to use CodeKit with Dreamweaver themes and work on them directly and actually see the changes in real time. So right now, CodeKit is great to work on HTML, or if you're doing HTML mockups. But if you have a WordPress installation, you're going to run into some issues. And that's because CodeKit uses its own built-in web server. So it's going to alter that URL to inject its own port number. Well, that's going to screw up permalinks, and then you're not going to be able to render. So Desktop Server actually senses that you're using another type of web browser or IDE and compensates for it. So that's a real breakdown there. Again, a couple of the other features. There's a copy feature. Removing websites is just as easy. We've got a dozen websites here. If I wanted to go ahead and remove the website, I just click remove. It takes a couple seconds. It cleans up your database, cleans up the permissions, cleans up your files, and prepares it here. And everything that you've seen here, you can do from an airplane, you can do it from a desert island. You don't need an internet connection. Yeah, like you really want to be doing that, right? Take a vacation.
Will it be able to move a site from one local site, one local host to one remote host to another remote host?
No. So you can actually export or deploy to a live server. There is a feature within Desktop Server that caters to the masses. So we're talking about the majority of popular web hosts. Again, Desktop Server specifications meet that. So if you're with HostGator or a couple of the more popular hosting providers, you can export and deploy to those hosting providers. And it deploys everything. So if I go ahead and just click Next and select a website that I want to deploy, so, such as the advanced website we just did, I click direct deploy to an existing server, it's going to ask me for WordPress credentials of that live website. So the way that you actually deploy is you set up WordPress on your hosting provider. Now, most hosting providers already have a one-click install for WordPress, and that's the way that we cater desktop server. You just enter your WordPress credentials, and it will communicate to that website. Doesn't need FTP credentials, doesn't need SSH credentials. It actually goes through a plugin that is running on your hosting provider, and then installs and deploys your website for you. Changes the URLs, changes the hard drive paths, all that stuff.
Question.
Yeah.
Now, do that. It works great to do the direct deploy.
Mm-hmm.
So to use desktop server to move from one remote host to another, I guess you could do it indirectly by going local first and then redeploying.
Yeah, so right now you can do it indirectly. What you can do is you can use Duplicator or Backup Buddy or any one of those backup programs, plugins rather. Back up your website, bring it down to your local host, and then redeploy to another domain. So yeah, that's certainly one way to do it.
Would you recommend that, or is there a better way?
Well, the better way would be to use Desktop Server 4, right? So, but that isn't.
That'll have that.
Yeah. So what we're looking at is is an easier way to do deployments. Let's take a look here. So I'm going to talk about Desktop Server 4 just a little bit. We're going to do a preview. Just right off the bat, we don't have a release date yet. Sorry. We are really, really close. We're entering our beta cycle, and that sounds a little bit alarming because it means that we're still in alpha. Well, we are in alpha version 10 now. So there's been over 3,000 pages of code that have gone in the last year in this new version. So it's a lot of functionality that's going in here. Now, granted, given that, we do have a short beta cycle. So by that I mean it's really dependent on testing. So the difference between beta and alpha is beta is feature complete. And I can't call our current version beta simply because we're not feature complete. And that missing feature is cross-platform. We're working on some cross-platform issues, and then we'll be entering beta. Okay, so before I can start Desktop Server 4, I'm going to shut down Desktop Server 3. How many people are familiar with Instant WP?
With what?
Instant WP? Instant WP is a USB drive. It has Apache, it has MySQL, it has everything that you need to get started with WordPress. You plug it in, and then you can go to localhost on your web browser, and you can work on your WordPress project. So the disadvantage of using Instant WP is you don't have that isolation, right? Because within Desktop Server, you can actually create an advanced.dev, an example.dev, my latest project.dev. Instant WP is only one website. So Desktop Server does virtual host management. The other disadvantage is that Instant WP is only on Windows. Now, why am I telling you about Instant WP is because it does have one compelling feature. And that is the ability to put it on a USB drive, right? So you can take it with you. And a lot of people, surprisingly, have come to us and said, hey, you know, is there any way that we can use Desktop Server and transition from my home machine on my laptop or to my office or even over to my client side to do a preview, a private preview. And we said, no, you know, we really can't do that. Technically, we could do it on Windows, but it's a little bit more difficult to do it on Mac, simply because the file system is more like a real hosting provider. They're not apt to changing your entire structure overnight. So what we've done in Desktop Server 4 is we've made that possible. So you can now run Desktop Server version 4 on a USB drive, whether you're on Mac or Windows or even Linux now, and just plug it in, and boom, you can go ahead and fire up all your development sites. So I can show you a demonstration. Well, we're not feature complete, right?
Okay.
So,
There's a version.
but there is a version, yes. So this is Desktop Server version 4. It looks a lot like Desktop Server 3 in terms of the application window is about the same size, but that's where the similarities kind of disappear. You're seeing right now is a login screen. Now this is a login screen again for your local machine. You don't need an internet connection. You can be completely disconnected. These credentials are for my Mac. And the reason why that's necessary is because we need to do some system level configuration in order to make this magic happen. So you have the option to remember. You don't have to. But if you go ahead and click on login, it's going to log in, and then you are in Desktop Server with a familiar wizard-like interface that I showed you in version 3.
That looks just like WordPress.
Yeah, does anybody notice anything different about this particular application? Unlike Desktop Server 3, this is a native app as well, but the interface is actually driven by WordPress. So we're able to leverage Retina displays. We're able to leverage plugins. Well, we're able to leverage localization. So the next version will have the ability, although we haven't translated it, much less our English version, but that could happen. So big plans for version 4. I can show you again a quick demo of how to create a WordPress website. Same wizard-like interface. If I click next, I can provide it project title along with a name. So we'll call this one version 4. You still have the blueprints functionality. If you're not familiar with Desktop Server, it has a feature called blueprints where you can roll up. It's kind of like Theme Roller, only a little bit better because you can configure your themes and your plugins and have that replicated. So if I click Publish, Desktop Server is going to go through this process of creating your WordPress website. Now this is significantly different from version 3 because we have a feature in it called workflows. And a workflow is the ability to expose the command line to this graphical user interface. How many people are familiar with WP CLI? Good. I'm glad to see a lot of people are familiar with it because this is the advanced WordPress group, right? So if you're not familiar with it, check out WP CLI. What it is it's a library that allows you to manage WordPress installations on the command line. And so Desktop Server version 4 actually uses WP CLI. And it's using it in the background. You have the option to go ahead and use the command line. If you're a command line junkie, you have full reign and full power to go ahead and do that. If you're not and you like to use point and click, you want to work relatively fast, faster than the command line, I think, you can go ahead and do that. So if we look at workflows in Desktop Server version 4, you can actually see a series of virtual terminals. And those were live terminals that actually showed you what had been typed in order to produce that WordPress website. And you can go ahead and modify that. So if I go to a list of my WordPress websites, we have version 4, we have the ability to edit. You can view, you can export, you can copy. Let's click on view. If I click on view, it takes me to my installation screen for the new website that we just wanted to create. So version 4. And there we are. So we have our WordPress website ready. A couple of key advantages in version 4 is bulk operations. Because this is like the WordPress interface, you have a dozen WordPress websites, you can just apply bulk operations. For instance, go ahead and move it to the trash, and Desktop Server is going to clean up the trash bin for you.
Can you restore those if they're in the trash?
You can. You can go ahead and restore them, and it's using your native features of your specific operating system. So if you're on Linux, or if you're on Windows, or if you're on Macintosh, you can go to your trash can, and you can see your sites that are there. So say you just deleted a site, and oh, darn it, you know what, I forgot to pull that particular file. I can go through my trash can and just grab that file. If I click Restore, or Undo, Undo's going to do the same thing. Go to List of My Sites, go to the trash can. I'm going to do a bulk operation to restore. So now I just pulled them out of the trash can, pulled my database back. So now it's all available for you. I can go back to that site. So if we go to All, version 4 is still there. It's still alive. So yeah. Plugins. We're working on a series of plugins. Now that we have the ability to have plugins, you're not going to have to update Desktop Server. You don't have to go to our website and do an update. We're actually using the same update mechanism that WordPress has, because now Desktop Server is essentially a native application that just happens to have the interface driven by WordPress. If I go to services here, services, yeah, I can turn on and off my services. So anybody notice anything strange about this? I've turned off Apache and I've turned off MySQL.
Still running.
But Desktop Server itself is still running. So Desktop Server, again, I mentioned it feels and looks more like a native application. It doesn't use MySQL. So it's actually using a flat file. It's using SQLite. So that's the reason why we're able to go ahead and keep this up. Those who are familiar with Desktop Server 3, there was this thing called the preferences file. The preferences file contains all of your websites that you've been working on. And now we're actually storing that in a WordPress as a custom host type in the SQLite. Let's see here.
So you had to actually write your own WPDB adapter for SQLite, didn't you?
No, actually SQLite already exists. So we've really leveraged a lot
Maybe
of
support for SQLite in WordPress, because you're running an actual WordPress.
It was actually written by a Japanese fellow that wrote the interface. And it is on WordPress.org. It's a little bit dated, but we've done a little bit of tweaks and made it work. So, yeah.
I'd love to see the link for that, because
Definitely. Yeah, for sure. Why, you're not forecasting Linux issues here?
No,
Okay.
I'm forecasting not having to use MariaDB or MySQL on my forward base.
Yeah, so Desktop Server version 4, completely fully open source. You can take a look at the source code, and when you actually examine it, you can use that in your existing projects, right? So if you want to create a WordPress website that doesn't use MySQL, it's really, really portable, take a look at Desktop Server. You can actually do that, yeah, for sure. But MySQL, I'm not going to knock it simply because if you have a large website and you want to leverage indexing and all the features that SQLite kind of falls short on, MySQL or any type of VLDB, very large database engine, is definitely the way to go. So now I can turn the services back on. I think HTTP is still running. Let's see here. And I can turn it back on. So when I'm turning it back on, if I go to my workflows, you can see this little workflows icon is spinning here. It's showing me what's going on here. So MySQL is trying to start. And I probably should have rebooted my machine because I think DS3 might have conflicted with this. Take a look here. Why is it hanging? It's got to hang because I'm doing a demo, right? But I can go through here and I can actually terminate this process if I need to. And it looks like I need to. So we'll kill that process. But DS4 is really designed to allow you to accelerate your development workflow. Everything that you see here is something that you would normally be typing in WP-CLI that's being generated by the user interface. Whether it's restoring a site, copying a site, or developing a site, or installing or updating a plugin, all that can be automated.
Steve, you can show the address book.
Let me take a look here. I don't know what state that's in. So we have a number of plugins that you can actually download and implement when we release the beta. One of them is one of them's not working. So that will conclude our demo. Actually, we can go right back into the application. No, we cannot. We're dead.
I guess the other question is EA 4.0?
Greg, can you even say anything? EA
for beta testers for 4.0?
Well, yeah. Well, I would say that's very soon, within weeks, for sure. Because that is Alpha 10. It says Alpha 9 on there, but that is Alpha version 10. We are entering the beta cycle. Beta, again, means feature complete. We're just awaiting, we're really awaiting development of our premium plugins, to tell you the truth. That's something else that we need to do development on. And because that's our revenue stream. So our purpose is to release Desktop Server to the world. And then existing premium members of Desktop Server that want the premium features, such as the direct deploy, the Dreamweaver integration, code integration, and soon our CSS tools, integration, you can do that within plugins. So, yeah. Any questions?
How do you handle multiple people in like a small dev environment using coding on the same site? Is there any way with desktop server to kind of like keep them in sync rather than using, well, on the database side more rather than the code side?
Yeah, you know, on the database side, there's a lot of work that's going on right now. We do kind of have a specification on how to do that. You know, there's been a lot of hype about WordPress. Unfortunately, they did not meet their Kickstarter goal, I guess. But we do have some ideas about synchronization. I can't really comment on that because that will be truly vaporware at that point. But Desktop Server 4 is not. And so, yeah, we want to address that, definitely. And because it's an open source product, and you can write your own WordPress plugins or Desktop Server plugins. And by the way, so when you write a Desktop Server plugin, you're writing to the familiar API. If you're already familiar with how to write a plugin in WordPress, you already know how to write a plugin for Desktop Server. It's really that easy. Any other questions?
So, can you write a plugin in a WordPress site in Desktop Server that then you can implement in Desktop Server?
You can actually. So there's a couple of constant switches. Your plugin can actually look and see, oh, is there a Desktop Server version number? And if there is, and you know you're within Desktop Server versus in WordPress. And then naturally, there's a couple of other compelling features in there. If I look at, I can actually show you source code. How's that?
So you can do Desktop Server development in a Desktop Server WordPress site because of the work that you guys have done.
Right, now there's some hooks that are in there. So when Desktop Server actually starts up, I mentioned that there is no MySQL, right? It's actually using Node.js. So Node.js is the bootstrap that kicks off WordPress. Kind of uses the same technology that Ghost uses. So it's kind of interesting in that respect. But our interface, we're really committed to WordPress. But there could be a Ghost plugin. There could be any type of plugin you can dream of.
Is there any versioning or syncing with like a live site?
Same features that we have currently.
I haven't used it, so.
Yeah, the same features are the ones that you can bring down a website. Unfortunately, right now, because WordPress does use FQ URLs, it embeds those URLs in there. Synchronization is a little bit difficult. A lot of proprietary plugins have indexes and foreign keys that we're not aware of. So synchronization does become challenging. So this is actually the Desktop Server source code. If you actually look inside WP Contents in the application bundle, you can see that within the application bundle there's a WP Content folder, there's a Themes folder, and then within the Themes folder there's a Desktop Server folder. So Desktop Server itself is actually just a gigantic WordPress theme, and that's what drives the user interface. All right, I guess that concludes that. Okay. Matt, did you want to show your food plugin stuff? Cool.
Do I?
And you have the option to use my laptop?
I need to do it here.
Or you can do it on yours here? Not a problem.
I'm all set. I'm all set.
Yeah,
Everybody, my name is Matt. I built websites. Also support for really. So this is the gallery before I came up here. Who's this kid? And these are the only awesome AWS. I'm just kidding. Yeah, well, the Foo Gallery is a gallery that could be basically any kind of image gallery that you want. What comes straight out of the box at the moment are just two different gallery templates. One we call responsive, which is basically just like a grid that it can be like at the largest width, whatever, it's 3 images across, but when you make your screen smaller, then of course it's 2, it's 1. So it's responding, it's responsive. And the other one is called a masonry template, which is just like it sounds like. It looks like a bunch of bricks. Jetpack has something like that. Justified Image Grid does that. Foo Gallery now does that. And what I just built just this weekend, basically. Well, what's today now? Wednesday. Well, that was a long weekend. But is a extension for it to use OWL Carousel. If you haven't heard of it, it's really the simplest, one of the simplest JavaScript based galleries I've ever used before. It's really powerful. And trust me, if I can make a template from Foo Gallery, anybody can. You'll see here, these are kind of the default. This is the default instead of the standard WordPress gallery image choosing thing. Basically, you just add images to this area here really simply. Add media, and you just grab your image, and you have some options here, and you hit select, and there it is. Now it's in your gallery. That's it. It's in terms of like clients. If you have lots of clients and you try to show them how to use a default WordPress gallery, how many of you have like pulled your teeth out doing that? Like it's a little bit ridiculous. Now hit create gallery over on the left side. Now hit create gallery again over on the right side, but it's a button this time. It's kind of crazy. How many of you have tried Next-Gen Gallery? We won't talk about it. Yeah. I mean, so you understand why we felt compelled to build something. Yeah.
Does this allow Facebook comments on the gallery?
Not currently, but guess what? You can make an extension.
Right now.
Yeah, make an extension.
But isn't the gallery just goes on the post, right?
Say it again.
The gallery then just goes in the post page.
It goes in just with a shortcode.
So you can just comment on that.
You can comment.
Yeah, I want more like a light box, comments on the light box, crazy stuff.
Yeah, everybody wants social gallery does that, and it kind of really sucks.
Yeah, I want social gallery.
Yeah. A commenting feature in Foobox is on the list, not in active development. It's on the list though. And here's all the different options I have in OWL Carousel. But what you'll notice right away is if I want to make this one the responsive one, I hit that, and now all my options change because responsive has different options going on. And if I go to masonry, then it changes again. That's the idea, okay? So then with extensions, what we built straight into it, you go here to extensions. Now here you can see all the extensions available. Here are just the ones that are currently active. Here's my OWL. We have a section called featured. Featured is really important because if you build an extension or a template for Foo Gallery and want us to feature it, if you do it like tomorrow, I guarantee we'll feature it. I mean, if you do it within the next couple of weeks even. So we'd love to feature folks who submit stuff. All the free ones that are available are right here. And even if you want to build an extension that you want to sell premium, you can even throw that in as well. But this is the part I want to highlight. Build your own. You'll see that the OWL is already there. Without the OWL, you'll see that we have this set up here. Question? No? Good. Yeah.
What's the take on our word to submit for premium?
What's the take?
Have you guys worked out like any type of commerce?
If you want to host your premium plugin at Foo Plugins, we have a pretty standard 3070. But we're always talking about that kind of thing. If you want to sell it on your own site, you could do that, and we could actually still feature it in Foo Gallery. That's kind of the cool thing about Foo Gallery, is that where the source of the extension is doesn't really matter all that much. We have some logic built in that's going to be able to deal with that. So flexibility. That's part of the reason why we made this free, is ultimate flexibility. We call it the most extensible, hackable, flexible gallery you can get.
I mean, obviously.
Yeah. Well, if something is going to be featured in Foo Gallery, then we're going to look at it really carefully. And we're actually still talking a little bit about exactly where it's hosted. But you know, that's the great part about it, if it's featured. But if you build your own, then it's still going to show up in the Build Your Own tab. Nobody else in the world is going to see it. But if you build your own, it'll show up here, and you'll have, if you build 20 extensions and you install them, they'll all be listed here on the Build Your Own automatically. So they're there, and they'll show up on the All tab as well, or the Active, stuff like that. But in order to set it up this way, the one thing, it's basically just like an extra step. Extensions are just normal plugins. You install them just like any other plugin. Upload them as a zip in the plugin area. But when you activate them in the WordPress, in WordPress, through the plugins area, they're active, but they're actually not hooked into Food Gallery yet. And that's why you see down here the little activate, deactivate button. This is where actually, if you want it to be actually active in Food Gallery, then you have to also activate it here. So it's kind of also another nice way to be able to have extensions available, especially if you have clients and you want to have them installed on the site, but you don't necessarily want them to be able to have access to them. You can activate, deactivate, and then you have a little bit more control that way. But what we did here with Build Your Own basically is we created a form where you basically can download a template or an extension boilerplate directly. So you just fill out this really simple form, and it's basically already a plugin that you can install and activate, and it'll show up in Food Gallery right away once you install it. I see a question on your face.
Turn your screen share off.
My screen share off and on?
Yeah.
I'll do that. Although this screen is acting a little funny. You know what? Hold on just a second. Where am I not supposed to do this? Huh. Yeah, I dropped the hung up on me.
Mine was doing that too.
Sorry, folks. Oh, I don't have any internet. That's why.
In the future, nothing works.
Okay. I'll read my emails. I think you might have to call me again, Your Honor. All right.
I don't know if it's live, but if you pull up your chat, yeah, that should say you're in a. So the Hangouts on the top right, it should say that you're in one right now. You can rejoin. Yeah. To join. And you're back.
Oh, thanks, but
So for example, that's Steven's adorable little child picture. And when you click on it, it takes you to ServerPress. So that's an external website that all that's in Flubox. And that's only available in Flubox Pro, not in the Lite version. But for the feature of being able to link to another page, let's see, Leon's I opened to another page. That one could easily be with Flubox 3 if you wanted it. If you wanted a picture to show up in the Lightbox, but the image to go to a different page, then you're all set there. Oh, the one thing that I don't have, which I do want to work on actually, is I do want captions to appear in the overlay currently.
That would be sweet.
Yeah. So let me. Sorry, I'm going to write that down because I know me. Captions on overlay.
UberGrid was really super flexible. You could also choose a file that was an overlay.
Oh, that's cool.
A little image file.
Yeah, I mean, I'm certain that Owl Carousel, this one, is not going to be as extensible or not as fully robust featured as something like a premium UberGrid.
Sure.
But
well,
for some of
those two features.
Yeah, but yeah, that's what I mean. So I'm trying to make it as simple and elegant as possible. So Chris's pops up in Flubox. Yeah. Revelation. Who else do I got? Devin. Can't go without Devin.
All right.
Boo. There we go. And I will say I can't control how quickly their sites load in Flubox. I cannot do anything about that. I'm sorry.
And my site's slow.
So.
And I get the file house, right?
Oh, I did it twice.
Preload it.
Yeah, that's great. So that's the idea. So let me just show real quick just a little bit of the underbelly of the Owl Carousel as the highlight of how to build. And I'm totally embarrassed. I've done this before. I come to show something and I'm not using DesktopServer. I'm so embarrassed.
That's okay.
And even though I have Sublime all the time, I actually still want to use Notepad. So right when you download it, you're going to have all three of these files: Carousel, Foo Gallery, Owl Carousel Init, and Foo Gallery Owl Carousel Extension. This is the base plugin right here. The Init is just what needs to launch in order for Foo Gallery to recognize your extension. So it really just runs once. And then Gallery Owl Carousel is your actual template that controls the markup. So, for example, when I mentioned that I basically, and it comes with not all of these, but lots of these defaults already. Like, for example, the Lightbox one, ARGs, all of those are preloaded in that boilerplate for you that you can refer to automatically. But really, and then I added all of this stuff, and then really all the magic of the actual gallery is just this right here. This is just where the images are spit out, just with that basically. And so you can control exactly how that's set up, and that's your whole thing. So in my case, all I needed was to enqueue the Owl Carousel, and then I have their init file right here. And initially, I just put in the defaults in here, and once I loaded it up, it was already running with Owl Carousel immediately. Then to make it an extension and to use the settings, of course, I've added in all the setting options right into the init right there. So it was pretty straightforward. And then the great thing that we're doing with pretty much all of our Foo plugins right now is everything is being loaded from a class that we've built called Foo Plugin Base. And what that does is it basically automates a lot of stuff for us. And me, as somebody who's not like a from the ground up kind of developer, I really like it because I use Foo Plugin Base, and basically I don't have to enqueue my CSS or my JavaScript at all, because Foo Plugin Base does it for me, and it does it correctly to the right place as long as I follow a certain naming structure. So when you download the boilerplate, you're going to have right away one that says gallery, owl, carousel. And that one right there, that JavaScript, it loads only on the front end, never on the back end, and it only loads when your gallery, not even if it's a responsive one, it's not going to load. If you load your shortcode that is a owl carousel, that's when that JavaScript is going to be loaded. I didn't enqueue anything. All I did was edit this JavaScript and I was done. And that's what Foo plugin base does. Same thing with this one right here. You see it says it's called admin gallery owl carousel. That one's only going to be show up in the back end when I choose owl. Man, there's too many owl carousel as my template. As soon as I choose that, then that JavaScript gets applied on the back end, and it isn't in the dashboard and in your custom post types and all that kind of stuff. So it keeps everything really clean, and I don't have to worry about how to enqueue it at all. Foo plugin base does that for us. So, and we're working on developing that out even more. And same thing with the CSS gallery owl carousel, admin gallery owl carousel. Those ones also, they only show up where they're supposed to, basically. You just follow the naming structure and you're done. You don't have to worry about any of those things. Yeah, I mean, that's the long and the short of it, basically. It's all right there once you download it. I added the includes file. That's where I put in my custom media fields for the images. Oh, I didn't show that part. That was what you were so interested in. There. Click on that, and down here I have all this. It gives instructions, and then here's the custom link right there where it could go anywhere you want it. And then if you want to use Foobox at all, or you can do same page if you wanted to go to the same page, or if you want to open it in a new page, or if you want to open in Foobox. So even those staff members, you could have a gallery of their faces, and when you click on it, it could open up a whole page in Foobox on that page, if you want to do it that way. That way they don't even have to leave. And with Foobox Pro, it also has it actually adds a hash at the end, so that actually every staff member would have their own unique URL still. So those are all bonus. Yeah. So questions, thoughts, hopes, dreams, aspirations, peace in the Middle East, right? Everybody wants that. Foo Gallery doesn't do that, I wish.
It can be.
Huh?
It's extensible to do that, from what I understand.
Say it again?
It could be extended to do that, from what I understand.
Supposedly,
Yes.
As long as you follow the naming structure.
Right.
Yeah.
Work with Genesis framework?
Yes. Yes. I explained everything. Perfect. I am excellent. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Matt, did you want to show what you got next?
Matt following Matt.
Okay, so my name is also Matt, and I wanted to share a little bit about starter themes. So before I came to AWP, I really didn't know anything about advanced WordPress, especially starter themes. I was always building off of, a premium theme or a theme that somebody else already created. So I came to AWP and I was turned on to Roots, and fell in love with Roots and started using it a lot. And there's always a back and forth about which starter theme is best, Roots or Underscores or something like that. And Roots is built on Bootstrap, but someone took it upon themselves to take Roots and build it on Foundation instead. So I wanted to show that quickly. And the cool thing about this, besides that it's on the fact that it's on Foundation instead of Roots, or instead of Bootstrap, is that it uses So Roots, if you're not familiar, uses Grunt for its build process. This is something called Gulp, which is like the next, like a predecessor, I guess, for or a follow-up for Grunt. So if you're not familiar with the starter theme, it's basically a blank theme that has. So, oh, what's up?
Screen share.
Screen share.
Just to do it yourself.
Okay, so who here is actually familiar with Grunt? Okay. Grunt, are you familiar with Grunt? Okay, Grunt, if you don't know, is a JavaScript utility that does things for you when you're building a website. Things like taking all your CSS files and compressing and combining them all. It does it on the fly if you program it to. It can do just about anything you want it to. Within Roots, the starter theme, it will grab all of Bootstrap's JavaScript. It'll grab your custom JavaScript. It'll combine it all into one JavaScript file. It'll do the same thing with, in Roots, they use less as a preprocessor. Do the same thing with less. It'll grab all the less that you have, combine it all in a single CSS file to be included in the theme. So you have all these JavaScript files and all these different style sheets that are all combined down into one CSS file and one JavaScript file. Makes it pretty efficient, and it's a quick way to build your site and not have a lot of external resources loading. So Grunt's been out for a long time. It's built on Node.js. So you install Node.js onto your system, you install Grunt, and then a command line, simple command in the command line will do all of this. It'll watch your build directory, your theme directory. So Gulp is the next step in this process. It was developed by people who were just not happy with the way Grunt worked. So you have Roots that has this thing called Grunt in it, and then you have Bootstrap that's built into it. I think a lot of people are familiar with Bootstrap as their base, as a base CSS framework. And then you also have, on the other side of Bootstrap, you have Foundation, another base CSS and JavaScript framework for quickly building sites. Well, so Roots had Bootstrap and Grunt in it for its build process. And someone came along and said, I like Roots, but I don't want to use Bootstrap, I want to use Foundation. So they took the Roots theme framework, they put in Foundation, and they put in Gulp to replace Grunt. And you get a theme that is called, it's called Gromp, G-R-O-M-F. Not sure where you came up with the name, but that's the name. It's on GitHub. It's readily accessible. So basically, you install the theme. You bring up your command line. You go to the theme folder, and as long as you have npm, as long as you have Node.js installed and Gulp installed, which are both really easy to install with the command line, you run npm install after you install the theme. Oh, I'm sorry, that's my fail. You run sudo npm install, and it installs a whole bunch of Node.js dependencies. These dependencies is what Gulp uses to do everything. It will create your CSS file, it'll combine and compress your JS, it can do just about anything. And this theme, it actually takes all of your images. So if you throw images in for like background images or any images into the theme at all, it'll take those images and compress them as well and minify them essentially. Something that you would, something similar that you could do with Photoshop.
Library use compressing?
Not really. It's a Gulp plugin basically that it uses. I don't know much about that part of it. This takes a minute. While this is installing all the dependencies, this is all built. This site that we're looking at is built on ServerPress. And also, okay, so disinstall all of the dependencies, and then just type in gulp. Oh, why did it do that? Of course, because I'm showing it off. Oh, maybe sudo. No? Interesting. It worked a minute ago.
What's your current folder?
I'm in your theme folder. Yeah. Sorry guys, it worked in my demo when I was
Oh, you have to do sudo.
Let me see if I can try and get this working. It's pretty cool once it works. Let's try this again. So it's built on, this site is built on with ServerPress, and the cool thing that I use ServerPress for a lot is, so every time I build a site, I do the same things to it. I would go in and I would set up the WordPress settings just the way I wanted with the right URLs and everything, and turn off putting images into a folder by date or year, and I would save that as a what's it called when the blueprint. And I would have all the plugins that I would normally install and the theme that I would normally work with, like this, for example. And then whenever it was time to build a new site, I just go to that blueprint. I don't have to go through that process of setting everything up again. I mean, it would sometimes save you 20, 30 minutes installing plugins and that whole part of it. Okay, there we go. So now the gulp is running. So you leave your command line window open, and you go into edit mode. So let me go to the front end of the site so you can see.
So is now Gulp watching those files?
Gulp is watching those files, yeah.
Cool.
So this is my page, and I'm just going to Sublime Text, and I'll go into my assets, into this SCSS directory. So now if I want to change, let's say, I can do body, background color. Oops. And black. Save. And once you start refreshing, that's not working, huh? Still not working. Is Gulp not running? No.
You do a power install?
Oh, there's an error.
Seriously?
Oh, yeah, it does.
Power?
Yeah, what's the...
Just power install.
No, that's not gonna work.
And those are up on the Bower family.
It's kind of like,
Dependencies?
just install.
Yeah, I completely forgot about Bower with this project. The project that I'm using it with, I don't use Bower. So in this theme, Bower actually loads all dependencies like Foundation, and all the CSS files from Foundation as well as JavaScript. It loads them through Bower, which watches the Foundation repo.
Is Bower needed to do this? I've always used
That's Twitter, actually.
So there we go. So I'm editing SCSS. I'm not editing CSS directly. And what Gulp is doing is it's compiling the CSS on the fly and re-injecting just the CSS into the page. The page doesn't have to do a full refresh. It will just reload the CSS. So if I, like I did there, I change the background color to black, it instantly changes it to black as soon as I click save.
Is it always super fast like that?
Super fast like that.
Not on Windows.
Doubles over stuff.
On Windows, super fast. Yeah.
Yeah. Because where on Mac it always watches and you can Windows
Yeah, so this was always much faster than Grunt was.
So is there a goal with Bootstrap and Roots fork as well without Foundation?
Not that I've seen.
No.
No.
You said earlier Roots was using less.
Yeah.
This is using SAS. Is that a difference between Roots and what is this called again?
This is Grunt. So
Of Roots with SAS.
there is a version of Roots with SAS. There's an official. The version of Roots that has SAS is actually taken from Bootstrap that was built on less, but Bootstrap itself has an official SAS. This is using Foundation, so that's why they're using SAS. So Foundation is a little bit different. There's pluses and minuses. I feel like to both. The menu system in Foundation is a lot better than Bootstrap.
So you don't need any like line reload plugin extension for Chrome like you run with.
No, because it's a Gulp plugin that does the live reload, and then within this theme, there is a PHP script to do the reload that it fires, or actually a JavaScript.
Does anybody know what CodeKit is doing? Because CodeKit does the same thing.
Yes. CodeKit uses its own server, so you have to route your web pages through it. Great for HTML, but then when you try to use something like DesktopServer, it's not going to, or anything for WordPress, you can run into trouble. Does anyone able to use CodeKit with WordPress?
I use CodeKit with Sublime, and all my stuff is on ServerPress, and I have no problem with it at all.
I use live reload and also ServerPress, no problem, but I use the browser extension rather than.
Which version are you using?
CodeKit.
CodeKit 1 or 2?
No, I haven't updated it to.
CodeKit 1, there's no issue. CodeKit 2 is 1.
Alright, so I won't update them.
We're going to put CodeKit in the store.
I use CodeKit occasionally just to compile the SAS reloads, but that's probably not as fast as.
Yeah, I have never used CodeKit. I don't know how fast it is compared to this, but I just know that I started out using Grunt with Roots, and then came to this, and the live reload blew me away because I didn't have to do anything to set it up.
Gulp and file in Roots does this.
Yeah, it's let me see. There is in custom.
That's going to be the S4 plugin.
Yep. So
I mean, we're already so.
I don't think you need this to reload the. Well, actually, I don't know. So right here we've got function live reload, and then it's registering the reload JavaScript file that was installed, I assume, with Grunt, and then it enqueues it only if you're on a .dev environment. So that's what this developer set up, and it works great right out of the box. I guess you still have to use. What was that thing we just did that I skipped? Bower. Yeah, you have to use Bower too. So you have to have Bower installed. Is Bower something you have to install separately? I forget if I installed that separately or if that came with Node.js.
Yeah, so it's a Node package. So you
do npm Bower and
Power install to get your Foundation files, jQuery.
Yeah. So Bower, what happened? Let me show you guys the data or the the theme files here. So here's Bower components, and then here's node modules. So when you run npm install, it installs all the node modules, and this is all the gulp stuff. So this is all the things that gulp uses for this to do its thing. And then Bower installs foundations. So here's all the foundation stuff. jQuery, the jQuery placeholder, modernizer, stuff that he has set up for this project. I actually took some of this stuff out because I didn't use it for my setup. I have no idea.
So just have like a label, change the label to placeholders.
Yeah, maybe.
Does it update these as they does it pull updates?
I don't think so. I think Bower, if you do you have to run it, or how does that work?
Right, well, Bower is tracking the updates, so the new version of Foundation comes out, and just Bower install and update your version too.
Yes.
Imagine if you want a long version, it's probably like a JSON, default JSON would be able to save.
Bower JSON.
Is it kind of like Composer for other?
Exactly.
Any other questions about it?
I'm just curious why you chose prefer Foundation over Bootstrap.
I don't prefer it. There's, like I said, I think there's benefits and limitations with each of them. I just found this and used it because I had a client that had a specific design club that was built with Foundation in mind. So I said, okay, I'll learn Foundation. That'll be cool. And then I found this, and I thought, oh man, this is awesome. And
Which version of Foundation? Because there was a recent update.
This is 5. This is the most recent version. Yeah. So one of the things I like of Foundation over this isn't going to show up because it doesn't have nested, but the nested menu. This menu isn't even working. The nested menu feature. So like if you have multiple submenus in WordPress, is so much. The user experience is so much better in Foundation. With Bootstrap, it's not even there. You have to hack Bootstrap and extend it in order to make multiple nested menus work, if you need to do that. Whereas Foundation has it built in, and it's a pretty decent user experience. It's easy to use on a phone, and you can tell where you're at for the most part within the menu structure.
And instead of having the accordion effect, everything just swipes to the side and shows the...
Yeah, you click on a sub-menu, and then the main menu moves away, and now you're in the sub-menu, and you've got a menu at the top that says you can go back. So
I think about doing that, some sort of add-on for Bootstrap.
that's going to be a project that I'm going to be working on here pretty soon, because I love that menu. And
it's not hard to do. I mean, I did that when I was on Bootstrap too, before Bootstrap had that auto menu thing. I did it for my projects.
Really?
Slide
yeah.
They have like 6 good examples of how you can do that.
So you can have a plugin and have a whole choices.
Yeah. Cool.
I used a plugin just to get around. It was a theme that was using Bootstrap, but the responsive menus were messing up after I customized it, so I used a plugin. Get it responsive menus.
Yeah, Bootstrap and responsive menus is not very cohesive.
Yeah, that's a responsive Foundation.
So, any other questions? Hopefully I explained it correctly and pronounced all of the terminology correctly.
Yeah, one thing I kind of ran into with Gold.js, and this could be more of those things, I just couldn't even get it going. Like when I had to compile everything, it just crashed every time.
What is it?
The I had an issue. I don't know if it's related or not, but with this project, there was, so it was using Sass to do the compiling, and if there was any Sass error, it wouldn't just notify you and keep gulp running, it would kill the process. So I ended up, I just searched on the SCSS compiler through gulp, and there was a way to tell it to output the error and not kill the gulp process. And that solved my issue anyway. But I was on Windows 7, and it was working fairly well. So. Yeah, I don't know. Don't ask me how I set it up because I have no idea.
So that would just be a switch.
Yeah, that's one way to go.
I don't get to work at work, I don't get a Mac, I get a PC.
Yeah, I was on PC for years, and then my work just switched me to a Mac. So New world.
I switched 5 years ago.
Any other questions?
Still me.
Cool. Well, that's all I want to show. You have any HDMI on your laptop? That's what I said.
Nice.
All right, never mind then, guys. Good to go.
No, no. Takes a minute.
Cool. All right, so the first thing I wanted to it's gonna be really quick. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to share was WordPress 1.0 beta is out, so big release coming out. Lots of cool features. I tried to get it quickly installed, but I was unable to. So definitely check it out with the plugin downloader, where you have to basically search for plugins and install. Looks much nicer. There's a whole bunch of other features that I haven't even looked into, but I'm really excited to. So definitely check that out. I think it's going to be out in a couple weeks. I'm not sure exactly the date, but yeah, that's cool. I'm down with that. The second thing I wanted to share was WordCamp San Diego this year. Unfortunately, has been canceled. Michael, do you want to go into that?
I'll talk about that.
I don't want to. It's already on the public, so I'm not releasing any new news. But Michael will go into why.
I'll know the details.
Yep. Okay, so quickly, I recently launched a new business. It's called ThoughtHouse.com. It's a full service agency, and we're focused on franchises. Check out the website, ThoughtHouse.com. I just want to show you a couple of cool features and scripts I use to go into that, what you see there. So one of them is called this jQuery type.js. Basically, I'm going to refresh this page. What it has is this typing effect. And
It's just like we come or something.
and you can, I kind of envision like, if you look on the home page of the site, it kind of types in these buzzwords almost in our motto, and you can loop it, and it looks kind of cool and provides a little bit of interactivity, which I was looking for. So that script's pretty nice.
What was it called?
It's called typed.js. So this is the effect. Kind of just types out a sentence and deletes it. And you can get all sorts of options and get crazy with it. The other one was called Tubular.js. It basically has a full screen YouTube video, and you can provide different effects with that. It does, but there's a couple other options for like video and things like that. One hack I had to do for Tubular is I blew it up, the video even more, so that it hides the advertisement at the bottom off the page. So that's one thing to keep in mind. And then, what was the last thing I was going to share? There's one called ReadMore.js that's also on GitHub. It basically allows you to concatenate long paragraphs to a certain length and do it on the fly. So the reason I had to do that was I'm creating this reviews plugin, and a lot of reviews people leave are multiple paragraphs long, and you just want to show a snippet of that easily. And so it allows you to easily do that. It's called ReadMore.js, and if you just Google ReadMore GitHub, it should pop up. So that's some cool stuff to show, but I didn't come prepared with nothing. That makes sense.
I'm tossing wrong, so.
That's all good.
Wow, that's cool. Look at that.
$15 a prize.
What?
This little plugin that VGA.
Okay. So I just want to do a very brief overview of a plugin I just made. So I made a plugin that very simple. I call it Gated Content Pro, just because. And it basically it's very simple. It makes it so you can hide content on a poster page until someone submits a Gravity form. So here I have a Gravity form called Join Our Newsletter. Just ask for email and fill out the form to read the rest of the article. And if you look at the way it is, it's just very simple. Fill out the form to read the rest of the article. Gated content, GF equals 1, some content. And when I put in the info, it shows you the content. Very simple. And meanwhile, if you have that same Gravity form on another page, it will work. So you can make it just so they join newsletter once. They don't have to join it a bunch of times. I support all the shortcode attributes that Gravity Forms does. So for example, here I do GF equals 1 for the form, and then GF display title equals 0. So if you want to hide the title, let me delete the cookie, which is how it, spoiler alert, works with cookies. So right here, gated content underscore GF underscore 1, so it will work for that. It just says that Gravity Forms 1 has been submitted. So if I remove that, refresh, here's the public content, and there it is, the form without the title. The only other annoying thing I have found is I haven't been able to figure out a way, in order to not show the confirmation message, I had to set the redirect URL on the form to embed URL. It basically says when the form has been submitted, it just goes back to this. I feel like there's got to be a way around that. I'm just not using the right Gravity Forms hook, but I've tried a few. I can't seem to get it in there before the confirmation message. Code, I use the boilerplate plugin that I've been using by McFarlane. I really like. So it's very simple. At the top, I hook into Gform pre-validation. Is the last. I've tried a few that work, but none that really get it before validation. And I say right before any form is validated, call set cookie form submission. And all set cookie form submission does is create a cookie with the form ID and the title. So this will work for any form across the site. It seems pretty harmless to store a cookie on people's computer for every form they submit. It only does it once. And then for the shortcode, I extract the attributes. I check to make sure the Gravity form is provided. I check if the bug is on, I get some errors. I check to make sure the cookie is set. If the cookie is set, I return it. If it's not, I output the Gravity form with those attributes: GF display title, GF display description, GF field values. I also use the TGM thing to make sure that Gravity Forms is installed for this to work, which I also am a big fan of. That's right here. If you haven't used it, I recommend it. You just include TGMPA activation, and then I have a required plugins where I just require Gravity Forms. And just give a message if you haven't installed it. That's it, very simple. I haven't put it in the repo yet because I've never put it in the repo, and I don't know how to do that yet. I'll figure it out. For now, it's on GitHub. If you go to Gated Content Pro.
Is it just hiding the div, or is it doing a refresh and publishing that content?
No, it's not. It's not. It doesn't put it out at all. Yeah, I mean, it's just an if-then. It's in PHP.
So you couldn't have the form refresh through Ajax? Like sometimes people set it to the Gravity form to do the.
Yeah, it doesn't work with Ajax. In fact, they even ignore that attribute. They even say use Ajax, I just don't do it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a wish list feature. So yeah, it's here under my GitHub, Gated Content Pro. Very simple. It was fun. It didn't take too long to make. I was surprised it didn't already exist. There was something that did something similar, but had horrible reviews, didn't say it worked, and had a really weird approach to doing it.
It'd be cool to send session data, send data to the session, if you know the data ahead of time, so that you can pre-populate those.
Wait, what?
Like so you're saving the form data in the session component, correct? In the cookie.
I'm just setting the cookie, yeah.
Okay, so you're putting all the data in the cookie section.
Just, it's not all the data, just true or false.
Oh, okay.
Or just whether it's been submitted or not. That's all you really care about. Have they done this action? And I made it so that it will, down the line, I could add add-ons or something to work for other actions besides Gravity Forms, maybe Formidable, or MailChimp or whatever. One more thing I just wanted to show, because I thought this site's hilarious, hackertyper.net. If you ever want to look like you're really busy at work, just go to the site and then just start typing whatever you want, and it just starts doing. And for every key you push, it types in like a lot more than one word, so it looks like you're really fast. That's it. That's all I got.
Excellent.
It's short and sweet, right? Second.
All right. So, as you guys already know, WordCamp San Diego 2014 has been canceled. There were some issues in terms of timing. There was the team lead at the time was also in the process of moving out of the city, and didn't do a very good job in terms of just staying in communication with the foundation. And we have we have a couple of other AWP members that are part of the group that know the whole backstory, like Devin and Chris and so forth. And, so we ended up picking a date. We had the venue set, everything was good to go, and we announced it. And as soon as we announced it, we realized really quickly that a certain individual hadn't promoted or hadn't pushed permission from the foundation for that specific date. So with that individual stepped down as the team lead for WordCamp San Diego, and I took over the team for WordCamp San Diego. With that being said, the main reason for really canceling 2014 is, with all the work that we put into the venue and finding everything, we've been finding this stuff for months now. The dates that we could potentially have done it for were going to conflict with a lot of different things. Conflict with Thanksgiving, conflict with Christmas. It was just not something. Exactly. Yeah. So and we tried to save the time frame and work with LA on that potentially, but just came to the realization as a group that the planning committee did that it wasn't doable to save that specific time frame. So we are moving back to March, and we will have WordCamp San Diego 2015 in March, just like we have had in 2013 and 2012, 2011. Currently, our big thing is just trying to nail down the venue ahead of time, way ahead of time, so that we don't run into this issue again, and the date, so that everybody knows ahead of time. But we wanted to also get the word out as quickly as possible, so that guys that were planning on buying tickets and plane tickets and everything else early didn't come out here in September. And if they did, we'll maybe have a special AWP event for them. So, with that being said, I had a interesting conversation with Andrea today. And one of the things that she brought up was the idea that the foundation has really been trying for a long time now to get an official WordPress San Diego event happening here in San Diego, like Meetup and everything. We are the closest thing to a stable WordPress event. We have been running literally month upon month, nonstop, for the last 2.5 to 3 years. There's other events, obviously. There's Rob's group, which is fantastic.
Yes.
And I explained that to her. There's the guys up north. They're doing a great job as well. But we've been doing it the longest. We've been doing it the longest, and we are central. So she has asked, and I asked you guys, how would the AWP group for San Diego? This isn't necessarily AWP website and Facebook group and everything else. This is just you guys that come here on a regular basis. How would you guys feel about making this monthly event, meaning the San Diego AWP group, the official foundation-sponsored San Diego WordPress Meetup?
I'm horrible.
There's good sides and bad sides.
Yeah, let's go over the
Exactly. The good sides. I'll speak the good sides. The good sides are that
yeah,
there is the foundation is planning on providing some level of sponsorship for the events themselves, and it doesn't necessarily prevent us from getting other sponsorships. What she wants to avoid, and many of you guys are familiar with certain people that will be unmentioned in this conversation, she wants to avoid situations like that, where people are charged for meetups, where people are, meetups are used for personal gains versus community outreach. I don't think she's against necessarily sponsorships like we do here. I think it's more along the lines of she does not want it to be, centralized for personal gain. I told her I'd talk to you guys about it. It doesn't have to be a decision that we make now. Yeah, we can discuss it on Facebook. We can get I'll definitely bring it up to the admins, the AWP admins, and have them sort of talk about it as well. The good side is it's legit. It's from the foundation, and there's Ominous Dominus. We are the authority of WordPress in San Diego. Period.
We call it the Federation.
The Federation.
The Republic.
The downsides are obvious. It is giving control of everything that we're doing right now with AWP over to the foundation. Some can see that as good, some can see that as bad. Other parts are we can have AWP-like nights and so forth, but she really wants to see a meetup that is all-inclusive, meaning not just advanced, not just beginners, but everybody coming together for one big, giant meetup every month. Other downsides, aside from that, are I don't know 100% of what the rules would be in terms of what SiteGround did for us in terms of providing the camera equipment and all that kind of stuff, and what WP Engine is doing in terms of hosting our stuff. Questions that I maybe haven't even thought about.
What about this accounting?
Huh?
Accounting, like if you have a WordCamp and collect tickets.
So all that's already happening. Already goes to the foundation. So yeah, the foundation takes care of all that. Any contracts that you sign for WordCamps has to be under the WordPress Foundation name. Everything is done specifically for legal purposes, so that we're protected against any issues or problems with venues or anything like that. Insurance, exactly. So all that, from a WordCamp perspective, all that's already done by the foundation. Yes, it's already been used, and it's going to continue for 2015. But I promised her I'd talk to you guys about it. And like I said, just off a show of hands, who thinks that this is a good idea?
My biggest concern is because exactly what you said, the all-inclusive.
Right.
And if it turns into like anything like our Facebook page, not to knock it,
Yeah.
but if you do notice, it is advanced, or that's what we call it.
I don't understand half the stuff presented, honestly.
And some of the stuff that gets on there, it really isn't advanced, per se.
Yeah.
So
would that mean we have to start changing the content of what's presented to cater to sort of
I don't know.
everybody?
That's a good question. I mean, that's the kind of questions that I would love to have you guys just email them to me, message me on Facebook. I'll put them together. Come up with some questions between now and tomorrow, and I'll message her specifically with your guys' important questions. Because that would be something that I would also question. But my big reason for coming here personally is I learned from all of and I learned stuff that, like I had one guy that just left a little while ago. He basically came in here and he came up to me and he told me this is all Greek to me. And I don't know if that's what the foundation wants. And I personally wouldn't have the time to plan and organize or plan and coordinate, something that I just wouldn't get any use out of. So it really comes down to whether or not we would like AWP monthly meetups to become part of just the official San Diego meetup, and maybe still have all of our advanced content in there and allow people to ask questions and so forth. Or if it would be, we still have our AWP meetups, Rob would still have his regular beginner meetups, and maybe we just put them all share them on their official meetup.com website. But she's really looking for sort of, kind of like how they do in every other city, where there's an official, foundation-sponsored event that anybody can go to, and it's WordPress and blah, blah, blah. Sorry, the first other people had their hands.
I'm pretty new to this, and ask Devin. I'm pretty brand new to WordPress.
Okay.
And I think that you guys should keep it advanced because, to be honest, if a person comes in here and they're like, it's Greek to me, well then take your ass back home and look at YouTube videos, look at Treehouse videos, look at Linda videos, and educate yourself. And then that way, that will kind of weed out the people who don't really want to learn. Because that's what I'm doing. I'm constantly every day. I'm learning. I'm getting better. So that way, when I do come here and say, okay, I understand. Okay, I understand. Because if you keep feeding the people that are just like the beginners that don't want to actually learn anything, then we're not going to learn.
But that's not to say that beginners don't want to learn.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying there's a lot of beginners things that they can take care of in the very beginning. So that way they can come here with intermediate or advanced stuff.
I understand.
And that's coming from a complete beginner.
No, I get it. Go ahead.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the dilemma that you just proposed was replacing the advanced with this thing that could become the beginner. And I think people in here would be thinking that they're losing something.
Okay.
Why can't you entertain the idea of having both?
And that was one of the things that I proposed. In terms of having AWP meetup still and having like Rob meetup still, and then people can go to one or the other. But I think in her mind, talking with her and sort of just trying to understand where they're coming from, they want to have like an official San Diego, that if somebody decided that they wanted to go to it, anybody could do it. And I think I can understand where the foundation's coming from in the sense that, people come here, and if they're put off by WordPress because we're talking about, grunt and everything else, they think that is what WordPress is, and it's not. We have our niche in terms of WordPress, and I think she just wants us to be willing to reach out to the other groups that would come to WordCamps and so forth. So, sorry, go ahead.
We're not saying that there's more of a always advanced, but also true to the new guys. So if you have something to present, just let them know, hey, can you let me know? Me, the presenter, will dumb it down for you to walk through the steps of how we actually got there, but always making an advanced level for the rest of the people.
Yep. And those are the kind of questions that I need. Absolutely. I mean, that's really is what it comes down to.
Michael, I think one example is Orange County. Orange County has a dev day, and that's really for the advanced users. So, and if you ever been to Orange County meetup, they're really fantastic. It's a big group. But we also have a general day, so anybody who comes in off the street wants to learn about WordPress, well, then we have a developer day. And
they do that?
They do it twice a month. So the first is the first one that's dev.
The first other one is the beginner.
They have a design day too.
And then if you want to go over camps, they have the advanced track and the beginner track. It seems like Rob's group is the other group.
Yeah,
And they cross both each other.
and I guess the other option too. I guess the other option too is the idea of us creating a monthly San Diego WordPress event that is the overall anybody can come to it. And I have to admit personally, I don't know if I have the time for that.
Yeah, that is.
And that becomes the issue, really. It's one of those situations where if we wanted to create that, we could.
Yeah.
But it would really depend on who in the group would really be willing and able to go to something like that, because it's sort of, because then we end up with like 3 events. We end up with the really beginner group, with the really advanced group, and the somewhere in the middle group, and time is really the thing that we're probably the shortest of. So,
now, the other thing is if you don't break it up, where are you going to fit? You're going to double the size of the people and fit it. Where are you going to go?
Well, if they're flipping the bill, then we could afford to supposedly do 2 a month.
Yeah.
So if Orange County, it's very easy for him to do it, because he's the one who runs Orange County. He has a fantastic spot, and that's why I promote it, or ask people to show up there. You can go, it's a huge venue, and then he does his general meetup, but he does a development meetup. And he's not shy about telling people to develop and say, you know what, that's a beginner issue. Show up next week. That's when we're going to do our, so it's our next time.
I think the only question is if anyone would show up to do it, because I would.
Well, no, I don't think a lot of us
Try to, if you're not
but,
there.
Hey, how many people remember the word perfect line?
Yep.
So there you go. There's a lot of guys that will show up here and say, hey, look, I'm here for work.
All right. So real quick. So let's get two more questions. But what it sounds to me, and I'm going to make this assumption based off of everybody's answers, and what it sounds to me is like we don't want to lose, and I don't want to lose either.
No.
So I'm going to propose to Andrea in this case, and I'll let her watch the video and see what everybody's questions was and responses was. By all means, still send me your questions, because I'd love to be able to relay those to her and tell her what our concerns really are. And I'll go through this video as I'm typing out questions for her and so forth. But it sounds to me like we want to keep the format, but maybe we combine a beginner event like OC does and a dev event. And so if you'd be up for that, Rob, I'd love to sit down and we can talk to Andrea and work out something.
Yeah, I mean, you can add me on Meetup, you can add me as a co-org to the group. And
in this case, it would be a situation where
or to their group.
We're potentially, and this is still something that I need to ask you guys for permission of, because as I've said from the beginning, this isn't my group, this is yours. Would you guys, if she's okay with the idea of, okay, have a dev event, which is what this is, and have a beginner event, which is what Rob does. Twice a month or whatever, each event happens, and so if we have the word perfect guy, we can tell him to come in 2 weeks for the next event.
You guys left this video right now. I'm crying.
Yeah. So if we have that, then I think we can sell it in terms of just being able to explain it. Look, we can have both events, but what she wants is to be able to draw all that into the foundation. So essentially, it would mean, and this is where I have to ask you guys for permission on this, if this is something you want, I turn over the AWP Meetup group to them. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But that's not exactly what happens. What exactly happens is you become the San Diego representative of the foundation. So you don't turn it over to them. You just gain a title, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Turn it over to them.
But that would also probably mean rebranding. That would probably mean not calling it AWP anymore, calling it San Diego WordPress, official San Diego WordPress. Right. Developer and official San Diego WordPress regular meetup, whatever the case is.
Most important question.
It's a branding.
So that beer's
Absolutely.
That's all.
Absolutely. I don't think the foundation has a problem with it. I'll ask. By all means, please send me the email and remind me to ask. I'll ask. But
the most important question is your answer to air conditioning.
yeah, it's all the way in the back there. All right, so that's what I'm going to propose then. I'm going to talk to her, let her watch the video if she decides to, propose to her that if you guys are all okay with the idea of getting rid of the branding of AWP Meetup, and it becomes the official San Diego Meetup.
That's still just an umbrella between these two groups. Exactly. This is AWP and that one is the other.
Exactly. They just take over the hosting of the meetup.com stuff, and then we can still have all of our similarities and everything else. So that's what I'm going to propose to her then. And hopefully everything being said, we will. I'll try to promote both events equally. So the beginner one will be the official event, and then the AWP one, what we are doing here now, will be the advanced event.
So Rob, you wouldn't characterize yours as simply beginner. How would you characterize yours?
No, mine is more of a paid workshop classroom setting, and so they pay a fee and come in, and I teach them how to do WordPress and answer their
so we need to come up with the.
But I would still be willing to go.
I don't know if the foundation will offer that.
No, that would be
actual
probably kept separate, but your group could turn into the beginner thing, and then I'd be happy to co-org a beginner event where it's a free event. Everybody comes in, and
we just need to come up with a monthly schedule like we do with AWP.
Yeah,
and allows for different people to host the different ones.
Yeah, because this one's what, third? What is now?
Third Wednesday, yeah. So we could do like
first Wednesday, whatever. And
yep.
All good.
Sorry, go ahead, brother.
So rather than This is what Rob's group is actually like an educational thing Bill paid for.
Yeah.
I think you should probably bring Chris Lima and his group into the fold, because that's what their group already is, except they're in North County. So, I mean, maybe if they could possibly move their group from some North County or somewhere like in between, then that could be that, because then it already exists.
San Diego
Yeah,
County.
that
Like, I don't think
yeah.
it's a move.
That could be the beginner.
Because that already is the beginner group, and it's a good group.
Especially since Christina has such an.
All right, I'll reach out to Chris then and ask him about that.
But this is a separate group as well, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
They keep their name, we keep our name, and we just agree to be like under the fold.
Yeah. Again, I'll ask. And that's, I really do need your guys' questions, please. By all means, send me a question, send me your concerns, so that I can reach out to Andrew tomorrow.
Yeah, I think they're going to be looking for one meetup group to take over-ish in a sign or whatever. And so, I mean, there are tons of other WordPress groups out there in San Diego too.
The only other thing I would,
There's only one good one.
Yeah, exactly.
Mike, real quick, other than like them sponsoring it or like paying money for food stuff, like what are the real benefits that they're giving?
I don't know if they're paying money for food. That's what I mean. Like, I need that question that you just asked.
Well, I mean, I don't even know like what the benefits are, other than like just attaching.
They host. From what I know, they host the meetup.com site. They're
paying the meetup.com fees.
Yeah, they're paying the meetup.com fees, which I'm paying right now, which I'm fine with. But they're doing other things, like they talked about potentially getting actual sponsors, like what you guys are doing in terms of sponsoring the events. What that entails, I still don't know. But
I do like that the organizers are able to sponsor these things. It's cool for us to get our names up there.
Exactly.
We're able to do that.
All right, I will bring it up. Please, by all means, don't forget before tomorrow to email me your questions or message them to me. I will compile all them together. I will send it to Andrea, and then I will rebroadcast whatever
Do you need
answers
them
are.
before tomorrow?
For lunchtime, potentially? Yeah.
So I was gonna, I'll email it to you, but I'm wondering what the question is. Would you be giving up any sort of autonomy and control?
We would be giving up branding. We would be giving up branding. Yeah, we wouldn't be calling this AWP anymore. We would be calling this.
But they wouldn't have any influence on content.
I don't know. I don't think
If they change
so.
their mind on something and they're in control now, then like they can enforce that, which is.
But that's no different than WordCamps.
What's that?
That's no different than WordCamps.
That's true, but we have complete freedom right now.
Exactly.
I mean, I like what you said is when WordCamp was coming up, none of us were consulted about it or invited to it or whatever. I felt really kind of, slighted over that. And this seemed like that would be bringing us recognizing that what is going on here is high value.
And the truth is, guys, like I've said this story before. I love Dre, I love Tony. Those guys are awesome. I was originally part of the original 2011 planning committee, but I had to drop out because my son was born. The truth is, we've been the most consistent that I've found. And so I think that's what is where you're talking about, Aaron, with the recognition piece. I mean, I don't even think she heard about AWP until it was brought to her attention that we were.
Yeah, the fact is now we're actually running WordPress and Chris, Devin, and you, we're the leader now.
And we got non-AWP folks in there as well. We got JJ, we got Derek from Automatic that's helping out with that. But it's one of those situations where I don't worry about necessarily the recognition of AWP. I'm not worried about the branding. I'm worried about this group. The guys that come here on a regular basis, not feeling jittered because they had to dumb down the material, or not feeling like they have to host another event in the month, just so that there's an official event that isn't advanced that anybody can come to. And without like an actual, I'll reach out to Chris Lehman and I'll ask him if he'd be willing to sort of join forces and PowerPoints combined or whatever about that. But when it really comes down to it is, personally, my feeling is, we're doing a great thing. And we're doing something that very few people are doing, and we're doing something that other people are wanting to copy. I mean, Alex from OC is doing an AWP now event in North County. And they have a meetup. And so it's one of those situations where, I don't know the direction for us to go in, but I do know that all of your guys' questions and all of your guys' input And all of you guys' recommendations will come in tremendously helpful when I talk to Andrea about this, and I make recommendations.
Would they be interested in like not turning over this meetup group, but forming a brand new one? And
That was one of the other things. But then we have to have somebody who is the responsible party, making sure that that meetup happens every single month.
I mean, I would volunteer to help with that, but I'd want to know more specifics on what that entails.
Okay. So, like I said, send me a question. If you're willing to help out with a regular monthly meetup that isn't AWP, also send that via email, and I'll put those names together, and that way she's got more information. All right?
Cool.
Any other questions, bitches, moans, complaints, same grounds? No? I think that's it.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Okay, speaking of sponsorship, AWP admins, there is a spreadsheet that I think Michael had linked to on the Facebook page. So we want to fill out a schedule for a comment, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So check it out if you see that.
I have one question.
Yes.
If we heard your presentation, if we're interested in buying your product, can we get a discount?
Yeah, Greg can actually answer that. Greg?
Stop the video first, everyone's gonna use it.
Yeah, we do have a discount coupon code, and I can get that out too. Okay. Yeah, definitely.
Great purchase. Quiet now.
All right.
Some of us are still waiting for
Yeah, some of you guys I know you're waiting for 4.0.
I went for 5.
All right, guys. Thank you guys for coming. By all means, hang out a little bit, talk, chat.